This is me, it's Queen Aset Haru, and thank you for joining me for another wonderful edition of Ask an Aquarius. If you haven't already, please hit the red subscribe button and smack the bell. Okay, guys, so if you have to ask anybody, you might as well ask an Aquarius. So I got another question. So from the comment section, I got a question that said, do people make themselves unhappy? And 20 years ago, 22 years ago, I may have disputed this. I may have said no. But then I lived a little, And I realized that most people who are unhappy blame it on another person or persons. For example, my husband doesn't treat me right, so I'm unhappy. My wife doesn't give me enough sex, so I'm unhappy. My boss doesn't give me enough praise, so I'm unhappy. My family is unappreciative, so I'm unhappy. You see, I don't make enough money, so I'm unhappy. People always give different reasons why they're unhappy, but they never say it's never their fault. They're always unhappy because of external things. So a couple, maybe about 20 years ago, I started to see this message. I started to see it on billboards and t-shirts and different places. And it said, happiness is an inside job. And at that point, I didn't understand what the hell that meant. But I kept seeing it, and I still see it to this day. And now that I'm this age, I know exactly what that means. Happiness is an inside job. The reason why happiness is an inside job, and the reason why the answer to his question, which was, do people make themselves unhappy, is yes. People do make themselves unhappy, but most of them will not identify it as them making themselves unhappy. Most of them will identify it as some external thing. But I'm going to tell you why it's not the external thing in most cases. Because you, like they said, happiness is an inside job. You are the only person on this planet who is tasked with making sure that you're happy. Meaning, it's nobody else's responsibility. It's nobody else's anything. It's all you. That's all you. Whether or not you're happy or not all depends on the choices that you do and do not make. So if you choose to be with a husband who beats you, if you choose to be with a wife who cheats on you, if you choose to live with a family members that don't respect you, if you choose to do any of these things and others, if you choose to be at a dead-end job, if you choose not to go back to school to get some education so maybe you can elevate to management or upper management, if you don't make the right decisions, let's put it like that, making the right decisions, sometimes the hard decisions, if you don't do that, then that's on you. You are the reason why. Now, people will always dispute that. I'll give you a perfect example. I know a woman who was taking care of her father. She was caring for him in his old age. She did not know her father until she was in her 30s. Her father had never been in her life, and she just so happened to find him, and he was sickly, and she decided she was going to move him in and take care of him. Not because she wanted to do it out of the kindness of her heart, but because she wanted to show him and the rest of the world that she was a better person than him. This was the psychological reasoning behind it that she came up with later. At the time, she didn't really know why she wanted to do it. She just had a strong desire to do it. After doing it for a certain amount of time, she started to complain to me about how she was sick of it. She didn't want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, what about his other children? What about his other family? There's other people that can help with this process. And she was like, well, I don't want to bother anybody. I don't want to be a burden on anybody, So she kept taking care of him and kept bitching about it day after day after day. And finally, I said to her, you chose to do this. For whatever reasons you chose to do this for. You've made yourself unhappy, and you're the only person who can change it. So you need to get some help. ask other family members, maybe, do something else, but you need to do something to alleviate the stress that you're feeling, that you subjected yourself to for no reason. Well, she got mad at me, which people often do when I tell them the truth. She got mad at me, and a couple weeks later did exactly what I said, because she couldn't take it anymore. So she started to ask her family members and got plenty of help that she needed. So his side of the family was very willing to help, but she had never said anything. So she got the help from them, and they ended up putting him into a 24-hour care facility, because he really needed more care than she was giving him. It was hard for her, and he needed a 24-hour nurse is what he needed. So she ended up making the hard decisions, asking for help, and got the help that she needed. So in that case, as you can see, she very much was the source of her own unhappiness and refused to do anything about it until I pointed out how uncomfortable she was and was pissed at me for pointing it out. And this kind of thing happens all the time. Like I said, I had another person that I knew. She was married to a gentleman who was very cruel to her. And she told me she was staying with him because of her kids. She had kids with him. 11 years later, she put up with him for 11 years. 11 years later, it was time for her son to get ready for college and start applying to colleges. Her son applied to colleges all over the country, everywhere but the state we were in. And when she asked him, well, why don't you want to go to Temple or, LaSalle or Penn State, and you can stay home and, be around your family and your friends? He said, I've been waiting to get away from my father my entire life. There's no way in hell I'm going to school in the same state as him. And she was like taken aback, because she stayed with him for the kids. And the one kid who had never said anything, respectful young man, never said anything to his mom, and the mother never said anything about what was going on. So she thought nobody knew, but the kids absolutely did know. And the son said, I've always wanted to get away from him. And I'm sitting there, when she told me the story, I was like, wow. I had been told her that you're better off by yourself with your children than having them in this unloving environment. And here this 17-year-old, 16-year-old boy said exactly what I had been telling her for 11 years. So she ended up leaving, but she would have left 11 years earlier had she had listened in the first place. So people always have a good reason, but that good reason isn't always the right thing to do. Like in this case. In this case, the right thing to do would have been to left and made sure that the door was open for the father to have a relationship with his children. But instead of doing that, she subjected her kids to his unloving behavior and cruelty. And they didn't even want to be there. But she was saying, I'm doing it for them. So people are very much the source of their own unhappiness in most cases. Sometimes it's because they just stay in a situation. Most times it's because of who they choose to associate with, their family, their friends. Some of the times that's why. I remember one girl was telling me that she really disliked this young lady that was on her Facebook page. She was always leaving negative comments, saying nasty, snide things to her, and she really disliked the girl. And I was like, well, why don't you just unfriend her? It's your Facebook page. And she was like, well, I can't, because we grew up in the same neighborhood, and she know all the people I know, and our aunts go to the same church, and it's going to be a scandal. And I was like, so what? So what? Unfriend her and move the hell on. Who cares, And she was like, well, people going to talk, and I don't want to make no waves. And I'm like, so you're going to put up with her and her bad, negative, nasty energy on your Facebook page every day because you don't want your auntie and her auntie to talk about it. So like I said, people do this to themselves for these good reasons. And to me, none of it makes sense. None of these reasons are good reasons. Like I said before, Your happiness is an inside job. So if anything or anybody, I don't care who it is, if it's family, if it's your husband, if it's who it is, if anybody is making you unhappy, you have to look at what can you do to alleviate this situation. Okay? And some of the times it means a very difficult answer. Some of the times it means leaving your husband. Some of the times it means, walking away from a relationship. Some of the times it means moving to another state. Some of the times it means different things like that. Some of the times it does. But if you're sitting there right now watching this video thinking that you're unhappy, you absolutely are charged with the task of making yourself happier. And you have to figure out how you can do that. Now, naturally, you're going to try to do it in a way that doesn't harm people, or it doesn't make too many, waves. You're not just going to come out and say, look, I'm tired of this and start yelling at everybody. You're going to try to do it in a way that's considerate and compassionate as well. But you have to make sure that you are happy. And if you're unhappy, you have to look at how you can change that circumstance. And you're the only person who can do it. So if you're still dealing with this bad situation in 6 months, it's because you didn't do something to change it. You didn't detach from the person. Because like I said, a lot of times it's the people. A lot of times the people around you, and you're holding on to them for some trivial reason, or some reason you swear is a good reason, but it's really not. So in a lot of cases, that's what it is. If you hate your job and it's making you unhappy, then it's time for you to find a new one. If you need more education, or if you need a certificate or something like that to get something better, then it's up to you to go get it. Most things that are making you unhappy, in most cases, can be corrected, but you have to get off of your ass and do something about it. You could be happier by tomorrow if you took some action steps to change some things that make you unhappy. So I challenge you, make a list of everything that makes you unhappy. And right next to it, jot down what things could practically happen to change that. And see what you come up with on your list. You might surprise yourself. You might sit there and work out all your problems on that piece of paper. So write down the things that make you unhappy. Make a list of them and start working on them one by one to take action steps to change them. And then you can make yourself happier. Happiness is an inside job. All right, guys, it's time for me to get going. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and pass it on to anyone who needs to hear this. A lot of people need to hear this. Okay. Likewise, underneath this video, I'm going to leave every way that you can possibly contact me. So if you want to leave me a donation, if you want to leave me a gift, if you want a tarot or an oracle card reading, if you want a tarot chart done, if you want consultation on some magic, whatever you want, all my information will be underneath here. Just take a look underneath this video. See you guys later. Bye-bye.